Thank you, Heavenly Father, for the day that you have given to us so that we can learn about your Son, Jesus, who suffered and died on the cross and took away all of our sins, and through hearing his word has given us faith to receive forgiveness. Help us, Lord, to hear your word today and increase our faith. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we are in chapter 9, and last week we were talking about, well, the ark has landed, right? The ark has landed. All the animals are out. They're gone. The animals are now on the menu, right? Yep. So we can eat all the animals, right? Although and there doesn't seem to be a dietary prohibition for all of humanity, right? In the covenant that's made, the Noahic covenant that's made. We still get this idea, though, from what we read, that we had to abstain from what? What do we abstain from? You can eat all the animals, but there's something that you can't have.
The blood.
The blood. That's right, because the blood is the life, right? The blood is the life in the animal. And so that's basically the only restriction that there is for all of humanity, right? But we get another idea, though, about dietary restrictions when we talk about Noah. And why might we think along those lines? What did Noah bring on the ark? Seven of each kind.
Well, the
Clean animals.
animals, and then wasn't it the unclean animals too? 7?
No,
No, there weren't.
only 2 of the unclean.
Oh,
A pair of the unclean, and then 7 of the clean, right? And so we know that Noah brings 7 of the clean because he offers them as a sacrifice to God, right? But those clean animals are also going to go out and be fruitful and multiply, right? So this whole idea of clean, unclean animals, even here, suggests that Noah and Noah's sons perhaps were only eating clean animals, right? And then later on, when we get to Moses and Mount Sinai and the law and dietary laws, Moses will he'll be very definitive about that. That's Leviticus.
so it makes me wonder, and I've always kind of wondered about the um, animals that were sacrificed, and they were eaten by humans, right? They weren't just all burnt to a crisp necessarily, were they? Or
Yeah, so that comes later on as to.
so later on, it was for the group, the priestly.
That's right. Yeah. So later on, right, you're right, that there's some meat that's reserved for the Levites, right, for the priestly class, so that they can eat, right?
But earlier than that, though, they were burning to a crisp. It's crispy in the.
Well, that's a good question. The text doesn't tell us. Yeah. So we're so we're gonna assume that that's what Noah did when he sacrificed the animal. He sacrificed the whole thing and burnt it to a crisp, right?
Okay, so you're saying he didn't have to sacrifice very many of them because they still had to procreate clean animals.
That's right.
So okay, and then but you made the comment said they also ate.
Right. So meat was on the menu.
Meat was whereas prior to
Right,
that it was always we thought vegetarian.
Yeah, that's right. That would be a good assumption. So, but now meat is on the menu, right?
Okay, I see.
So now they brought 7 of the clean, right, of each kind onto the ark, some of which would be sacrificed, the rest of which perhaps raised through husbandry, right? become milk cows, milk sheep, goats for eating, more animals for sacrificing, of course, right? So, every living creature that is with you is food. It's um, also God makes His covenant not only with Noah and his family, his sons and their wives and children thereafter, but He makes the covenant with all things, including the animals, which is really interesting. We talked about that a little bit. The curse of sin affects who and what? All of creation. That's right. When Adam and Eve are excommunicated from the Garden of Eden, God curses the entire earth, right? The entire earth. So that curse affects not only the curse of sin affects us and infects us, but the curse of sin affects all of creation, which Paul tells us in Romans groans, waiting for the day of its redemption, right? And its redemption is going to come. It's going to come by fire, right? And a new heaven and a new earth will be created, right? Just as also us, our bodies, right, will be separated from our souls at one point in the future, and that's called death, right? And then that body returns to the dust unless you've been embalmed, right? And you have a lot of formaldehyde in you, right? But ideally, it returns to dust over time. But then God, at the resurrection, gives us a brand new body, reconstitutes that body, and gives us a new body. The promise of the resurrection, a body that's not corrupted anymore by sin, which means it won't die anymore, doesn't have like the pain I'm feeling in my shoulder, the stiffness in my neck, all these other things, you know.
No arthritis hip.
That right, exactly, the hip, you have more hair, you have muscles like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? At least that's what we like to think, or some of us. Um, so, God said to Noah that He's making this everlasting covenant, and then He says, "I will remember." Verse 15 here. I will remember my covenant that is between you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. What does that tell us? In addition to God's covenant promise He's making with all of creation, but what does that tell us? There was a what kind of flood? Global, it's universal, right? And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. If the flood was not universal, then that statement would make no sense. Absolutely no sense. If the flood waters were just in Mesopotamia, right, then that means all the flesh living outside of Mesopotamia survived. So that the statement here can only make sense if the entire earth was destroyed by the floodwaters. And I know I keep coming back to that, and there's a reason for that. And that's because I like to have that teaching ingrained in our thinking from the text, because liberal theologians dismiss a universal flood because there's absolutely in their minds no evidence, no physical evidence of a universal flood in a geological record. And so they dismiss what the scriptures have to say here as just folklore, mythology. And that's just not true.
That's historical critical.
Yeah. Yeah. The historical critical method.
If it's not substantiated by science or history, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. Exactly right. Exactly right. I really
follow it real close, but it seems like there have been some apologetics that they've been making cases for, geographic anomalies that prove the flood now.
Yes.
Starting to.
Yeah.
Find more and more things that, steer at that. I don't know a lot about it.
Yeah.
It is coming about, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is interesting where some of these sources come from. There's a couple archaeologists that I watched on a show probably about 2 years ago. It was fascinating. I don't know what their theological background was, uh, but they had some really great evidence of a universal flood, and they thought that they could prove it. And it sounded convincing to me, but what do I know, right? I only have an MDiv, but it sounded good. I also understand that the Mormons also have delved into this too over the past few years, and they've produced some interesting shows. I haven't gotten into them, probably because they're LDS. So,
Well, the Seventh Day Adventists, I believe, have some on the YouTube or Amazon.
mhm.
They have stuff that show they go back and they discuss the lines of the Grand Canyon, or maybe even the Columbia Basin or the Columbia Gorge there.
Mhm.
You know, when Mount St. Helens, probably 10 years ago, some creationists came back and said if you look at what's happened around Mount St. Helens,
Yeah,
that would kind of prove the theory of the flood and
yeah,
volcanic actions and all the petrification that's in the bottom of that lake right there.
right.
So
The stratification.
yeah, there's just a ton of evidence that would point to a creation and the global flood and how everything changed during that time.
Right. Yeah, very interesting. Maybe that's what I saw. Maybe it was the SDA guys. Was it a team of archaeologists? Yeah, I bet that was it. And I just assumed they were Baptist. No, the SDA.
Well, how do they explain the remains of crustaceans and fish high up on a mountain?
Yeah, I know that's always intriguing.
Or in the desert. They also find it in the desert.
Yeah,
They were flying crustaceans.
That's it. They used to
Right.
fly.
yeah. So what they say, how that they explain it, at least it's been explained to me, is that through plate tectonics, when the mountains were formed, right? That's how the crustaceans got to the peaks. The peaks weren't there, and so you have subduction zones, right? And as as the mantle is being pushed against, it starts piling upwards, and so that's how they would explain it, right? And of course, when you're dealing with billions of years or a billion years, right? Um, then then you can make that work, I suppose. I don't know.
Okay. It will work for them.
I mean, there has to be some sort of mathematical formula that can be derived just from observation, showing us, the degradation of the mantle, the crust, going through subduction zones to where they can work out the math and tell us, how long it would take to do that. And I suspect that it would be a whole lot less time than what they're guessing.
Well, I'm sure. Well, it's just like the division of the planets. I mean, the
Continents.
yeah, continents. I mean, I can well imagine that was a sped up part of division.
Mhm.
I mean, it didn't take 10 years to do it. Maybe it took 1,000 years.
Right.
but that could have have happened.
Sure. Sure. So God said to Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth." And what was that sign? The rainbow. That's right. It's not the pride flag. The rainbow. It belongs to God's people. It's scriptural, right? Doesn't belong to the devil and his minions.
No, but it does belong to all people because
does.
he makes the covenant with every living thing.
Exactly.
And the other thing about the bow, I was listening to a podcast. The idea is that God is setting up his weapon of war, and like hanging a bow on the mantle or something like that, so that God is no longer out to kill man anymore, and so so the fact that the rainbow resembles what a bow looks like,
Oh, I see.
it's supposed to impress that promise
Mhm.
on everyone. And when you see it, think of the warrior that has declared peace.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. A multicolored crossbow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see it.
Forming in the clouds. Right? Yeah, it's a sign of God's peace. Exactly. He's not at war with the planet in the way that he was. Yeah, I think that's a good way to think of it. So verse 18, the sons of Noah who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the people of the whole earth were dispersed. It's good to remember that part right there, dispersed, because when we get to the Tower of Babel, it helps us to understand better what's going on there. So do keep that word dispersed in mind for when we get there. But what do you notice here in verse 18 when we run into a genealogy, right? When we start hearing these words, what is this telling us? Do you remember? That's right. We're moving to a new phase, right? It's a pattern here in Genesis. It will be until we get to Abraham, right? It's the curtain is coming down on the stage. The stage is going to be reset, and then the curtain's going to open up to that new setting, right? And that'll be a more in-depth genealogy that'll be given to us, a bigger one. So it's always a smaller one to close the curtain, and then a bigger one to open the curtain, and then we'll see the new stage set and a brand new story emerge from there. So that's what's happening here. So Noah's family is being listed because now the curtain's closing on this aspect of the whole story of creation of salvation history. So Noah goes forth. His sons are listed: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan, which we're going to hear more about. And then in verse 20, Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk and lay uncovered in his tent. Whoops. Looks like Noah was enjoying the fruit of the land a little too much, right? And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Verse 23, then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both of their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. Why is this important? What do you remember about nakedness?
Well, the Adam and Eve, they hid from God
Yeah,
because they became aware of their nakedness and they had shame.
yeah, exactly right. Who told you you were naked?
Yeah.
Right? Who told you were naked?
The first key.
Yeah.
Of course, God knew, but he had to have them admit it too.
Yeah, they were ashamed of them of their sinfulness, right? And so they wanted to hide their nakedness from God, right? So here what's going on? Now we're hundreds of years into the future. So what's going on? What does this tell us?
They're still ashamed.
But so yeah, so Noah he gets drunk, right? Which is not good. He gets drunk. He's laying in his tent. Whatever garment was covering him, he has somehow tossed aside. And so there he is, laying drunk in his shame, in his tent. And then his son comes in, Ham, and discovers him in that situation. And what does Ham do?
Tells his brothers.
Tells his brothers. Tells his brothers. We know that much, right? But we'll figure out here shortly what he was saying probably wasn't all that good, or how he was saying it wasn't all that good. But what else happened here? What did Ham not do? Didn't cover his dad. He left his dad naked and in his shame, laying in his tent, right?
Love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah. So now he goes out and he has his time spreading this, perhaps, exactly, yeah, to the brothers. And the brothers, Shem and Japheth, they take a garment and they walk backwards, put it on their shoulders, walk backwards, their faces turned away from them, and then they cover their dad. They cover dad's shame in his drunken state. So they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, now this is going to be difficult. It's a difficult reading. I'm going to admit it right off the bat. Cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be to his brothers. He also said, blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. End of chapter 9. Okay, so let's talk about this. So who was it that saw dad in his nakedness? Ham.
But he curses Canaan.
And right, and he curses Canaan. And Canaan is the son of Ham. So what's going on here? Is this really a curse of a son who's right there, right now? What's happening here?
The curse of his offspring.
Yeah. It's a curse of his offspring. Yeah, so who's Canaan?
It's a nation.
It's OPEC.
What's that?
The descendants of Ham. The descendants of Ham. Canaan are the descendants of Ham.
Yeah. So who is it? Who is it that the Israelites dispossess of their land when they come out of the wilderness? The Canaanites. The Canaanites. Yeah. So cursed is Canaan, right? So is this God? Is this speaking a curse to the Canaanites some hundreds of years later? Is that what's going on here?
Well, I'm and this is just speculation, but it was. I'm thinking that Noah saw Ham's evident lack of faith, and somehow perceived that that was going to be passed down because this is the problem child,
Right.
and so he's just basically calling him, calling him out, and just I don't know. I mean,
It's hard. It's hard, right? But this is God actually doing it.
yeah.
Yeah, God's actually saying this, right? Through
Noah.
Noah.
Is it pointing to the future where, where Abraham is, they go to Egypt or so, or no, the fulfillment of the evil of the Canaanites, or the Canaanites' evil is not fulfilled yet, or some statement like that. So they become very evil.
Oh yeah.
This is almost foretelling that they're, are they being cursed because they're Canaanites, or are they going to be cursed because later on they are very evil? And because of that being evil, then they're cursed.
No, I think you're on the right track. Exactly. I believe that this is a prophecy through Noah against Canaan, the Canaanites, right? That's going to happen. They're going to be dispossessed from their land, and right here is the first glimpse we're getting of it, right? So that the children of Ham are going to be dispossessed from their land, and it's going to be Israel who comes in, of course, and does that, and works as the hand of God. And Canaan, they are just evil, the epitome of evil. What the Canaanites, the wickedness that they did is atrocity after atrocity. It's horrible evil.
You mentioned archaeology earlier. There's archaeological evidence of them. The tall pillars on the tall places and human child sacrifice.
Yeah.
Obvious child sacrifice.
Yeah.
Mountain urns with bones for children. So, and some of them split in half and things. So there's some good YouTube archaeological things there.
Yeah.
And they covered it up. There's a lot of stuff in the archaeological evidence they don't say now, but they did earlier on this was one of the first things that was archaeologically investigated in the mid 1800s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, the wickedness of these people, it is well documented. You're right about that. So Noah is prophesying, right? Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers, right? Which happens. Israel comes out of the wilderness, and they go in and they possess the land, and they completely, by the time of David, they have completely just overrun the land of Canaan and possess it. And whatever people are remaining there are servants to Israel. And then he also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant." So the repetitive nature of the prophecy shows the humiliation of Ham and Canaan, his son Canaan, right? He's to be the Canaanites. Canaan and his children are to be servants of servants, servants of servants.
Yeah, it's. I think you brought it up that, like, adding to what Jim says, that Ham, it kind of likes that. That's his whole demeanor was this. Look at what there, you know.
Right.
It's probably his whole life demeanor, up to that point, and so based on that, it's not just one incident, but that just shows who he was in that one instance.
Sure.
Therefore, and because of that, his offspring were going to be kind of wild. Seems like too, because of his way.
Yeah. So what we can get a sense of from the text is that Ham was not repentant.
Well, the text doesn't say anything other than the fact that he saw his dad's nakedness and went and told his brothers. That's the only thing that we hear of Ham.
And that's
And we're
really
speculating all these speculations, or that we don't know. But
yeah,
I mean, other than God curses Canaan,
right.
So
He curses Canaan, and so what is the thought behind what prompts that from the text? What prompts Noah's prophecy of the curse of Canaan?
Your lack of respect for not covering his father, but going out and telling somebody else.
Yeah. So I mean, it's from what the text gives us that this is a direct response to what Ham has done.
Yeah, well, there's the sin of omission and commission, and doing something that you know is against God's will. This not doing something which you know is God's will,
Right.
and knowing that I should have covered my father's nakedness.
Should have covered my father's nakedness rather than go out and just tell my brothers about it. And we don't know what that conversation was, right? But what we do get the sense of is that Ham was definitely wrong in what he did, and he sinned against Noah. And so that's what prompts Noah's prophecy, right? But it's interesting because the prophecy is prompted by the sin of Ham, but it's not directed at Ham personally, is it?
You go after your children, you go after them.
Well, this is right. But had this been punishment at a personal level directed specifically at Ham, we would expect it to be a word against him, right? Rather, this is more general, right? Uh, this is the children of Canaan that we know as the Canaanites. Um, Not saying that makes it any better or easier to read, but it does give us some context into what we're going to encounter later on, especially when we get to, well, we won't get to it here, but later on when you're reading in Deuteronomy and the wickedness of the people, uh, rebellion, and all these sorts of things, and then why the land of Canaan, why it's being possessed by is the Israelites. It helps give us ancient context to that. to where it all starts. And it starts right here with Ham.
I wonder why they don't call them the Hammonites instead of the Canaanites.
It sounds too much like a piano. I don't know. All right, chapter 10. These are the generations of the sons of Noah. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Sons were born to them after the flood. And now here's the big list.
What is because it lists Shem first? Is he the oldest? Is that the reason Japheth is under Shem?
That's a good question, and I think that's probably it. I think that's likely. That makes the most sense that he'd be the oldest, or it could be another reason from tradition that's not disclosed here.
He's listed first in the verse you just mentioned.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So there could be a tradition that's not mentioned here to where even if he wasn't the oldest, he's the most famous, right? And so he would be listed first. So it's not always necessary that you be the eldest to be listed first. There could be other reasons too. But here I think you're right. I think that's it, right? Because we have Ham listed second, and so since he's the least famous, the least, I would have put him third if I were talking about who's the most famous out of them, right? If that's what I wanted to get across. Does that make sense? So the sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog. I'm just going to read through all these real fast. If you, yeah, yeah. So, but if you have a question, interrupt me, okay? And forgive my mispronunciations. So.
First paragraph, and then I'll tell you my question.
Sure. So the sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. The son of Gomer, and I always think Gomer Pyle, Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. These are names for your grandchildren and grandchildren's children. Yeah. The sons of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. From these, the coastland people spread in their lands, each with his own language, by their clans in their nations.
Okay, so my question.
Yeah.
We haven't done the Tower of Babel yet.
No.
How are we spreading with their own language and their clans to these new lands?
Yeah. That's a hard question to answer, and probably the best answer is the hardest answer, and that they do have their own languages, but for some reason, either by the time of the Tower of Babel, they only have one united language. Could be the case, or it could be the case that at the Tower of Babel, completely unique languages are given, and what we're reading here is that each of them have their own language, meaning their own dialect of the same language, which isn't really out of the realm of possibility, because when you study languages, I mean, all you have to do is just travel around America, and you can hear Texans and New Yorkers, and we have, it's not as pronounced as in other countries, but we do have our own dialects and oddities, things that we say, pop, soda, name a few. But when I studied German, it was more apparent in the German language that dialects were really important, especially to the Germans.
Well, back in the day, I don't think it's quite the same today, but in the Great Smoky Mountains, we couldn't understand all our neighbors. I mean, you couldn't. They'd been isolated for so long. It was really crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it says their nation, which is kind of a geographic area. Babel is much different because it's a city, and now all of a sudden it's multiple languages at once they can't understand. So there's a big difference there.
Yeah. So here, nation and nation throughout the scriptures typically means peoples. And why do I say that? Is because when we read nation, we have a modern construction of it right away in our thinking. We think of nation states, and that is completely foreign to the biblical text. There's empires, but there's no nations.
Well, even in a nomadic tribe or so, I would imagine the tribe has a common dialect between.
Yeah, and the peoples, that I think so too. Yeah.
Well, wouldn't you think that these people pretty much spoke the same language until the Tower of Babel?
So the Tower of Babel, right? So yeah, we'll get to that. Let's get there first, and we'll talk more about it. So 6, the sons of Ham. So did that answer your question, Dave?
As best it could be answered.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that. I
think Dave answered.
I don't think there's an easy answer there.
Well, I think he answered it with his own statement about the Smoky Mountains.
It's a good example, isn't it? So the sons of Ham, Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, and Sabteka. The sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod, who was the first on earth to be a mighty man. A mighty man, an El Gabor, right, in the Hebrew. So what do you think that means? Nimrod, he's the first to be a mighty man. What makes him mighty?
It's a mafia boss.
He's a mafia boss.
A mighty hunter.
He's a mighty hunter. Okay, so he's a mighty hunter. We get the idea from verse 9 here. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, right? Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. So that's referring to something common in the speech of who? So he was a mighty hunter, like it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. Who would understand that? Who would that be a common, like a colloquialism for? For Noah and his sons, or
David.
or for
David.
or for Moses, who wrote this. So it'd be for Moses, right? Because under inspiration of the Holy Spirit, Moses is writing this. So even to his day, this was like a truism, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. Right. So that's a great detail that's given to us in the text by Moses that gives this just the air of authenticity and truthfulness and genuineness. That this isn't just a made up tale, some sort of mythology, right? This is like a little factoid. Somebody remembering, oh yeah, grandma used to say whatever, right?
Like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord.
Right. Did your grandma used to say that? I don't remember mine saying that, but
Or something from here.
It wasn't a positive in our house when you got called.
yeah, yeah.
Mighty doofus.
The beginning of his kingdom was Babel.
That it makes sense in a way. His heroic figures kind of have a life bigger than themselves.
Right.
So it's something, like you say, a colloquialism that's handed down
Yeah,
for generations. So,
that's right.
I don't know, I can't think of anything right now, but just like colloquialism that we have that you might attribute to grandma, or
Right.
to your ancestors.
That's right.
Maybe this is not in chronological order, meaning that the Tower of Babel occurred shortly after that one generation died.
Right.
before this stuff can be said, because the Tower of Babel story actually inserts before all the generations.
That's right. That is another possibility, that there's an overlap in the text, and that happens uh, throughout Genesis, especially with genealogies. And where did we first see this sort of overlap? Do you remember way back when? The creation account, right? So we got the full 6 days of creation, and then the story was unpacked further. So we went back, had a flashback, and then we got into Adam and Eve in more detail. So certainly that could be going on as well, and that would be another way to resolve the difficult passage that you brought up just moments ago. So there's different ways to resolve that. I think they're all good. So we're okay. So Nimrod, the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. We're going to hear about Babel. Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. From that land, he went into Assyria and built Nineveh. When do we hear?
That's really jumping ahead.
Yeah, when do we hear about Nineveh again?
Not till Kings, First and Second Kings.
Not until Jonah, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right, man.
Yeah, not until Jonah. Jonah and the whale. And Nineveh is what kind of city?
Great sinful city.
A great sinful Gentile city, right? A great sinful Gentile city.
They didn't have Gentiles.
Well, in King's Day,
They did by the time of Jonah.
They did by the time of Jonah.
Yeah, they did by the time of Jonah.
At this time, it wasn't Gentile.
Was Gentile anybody non-Jewish? That
They didn't have Jews yet.
But by the time of Jonah, they do. Right. And so that's why Jonah runs from God, because he doesn't want to go and preach repentance to a bunch of Gentile dogs who deserve the punishment of God that's coming their way. Right. So here we get to talk about Nineveh just for a moment. Now I'll move on. So, and built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Kala, and Rezin between Nineveh and Kala. That is the great city. So let me ask about how these landmarks in these cities are being presented. What comes to your mind about how Moses presents that information? What assumption is being made by Moses?
these are existing cities.
Not only that,
but they're great cities.
but what about the hearers?
What?
The people hearing it? What is his expectation of them?
They don't know.
They know about it. They know what these cities are. They know where they exist, or if they don't exist anymore, when they existed, right? So this is like people trying to give me directions to get around in Pasco. They expect that I already know the street names, so they just tell me well, it's over here by there, and I go, well, where's here and where's there? What does that mean? But they expect that I already know these landmarks, and so Moses expects that those who are reading this know these landmarks. They're familiar with them, right? Once again, this is good to think about, to understand when it comes to an apologetic defending the authenticity of Genesis as giving us a historic account of Noah and the flood and thereafter, the generations thereafter, that this is legitimate. So from that land, he went into Assyria and built Nineveh. I already got that. So verse 15. Canaan fathered Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, and all the other breakfast cereals.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting.
Those significant
I'm getting out that off a Monty Python skit. It's not my own. I'm sorry, what was
Oh, it looked like it says gigabytes in there.
gigabytes? That's right.
Gigabytes of Hittites.
Right. And the Hivites, the Archites, the Sinites, the Avradites, the Zemarites, and the Hamathites. Afterwards, the clans of the Canaanites dispersed. And the territory of the Canaanites extended from Sidon in the direction of Gerar as far as Gaza, and in the direction of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboam, and as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations.
So that Gaza is the same thing as the Gaza Strip now?
No, but it's close. But it's close. Yeah. Gaza and Ashkelon, right? Philistine lands. That comes later, but we'll get a mention of them here too. To Shem also the father of all the children of Eber, the elder brother of Japheth, children were born. The sons of Shem, Elam, Ashur, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram, Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. I would not want to name my child Mash. I just wouldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. Maybe they didn't have potatoes then. They didn't understand mash. But Arpachshad fathered Shelah, and Shelah fathered Eber. To Eber were born two sons. The name of the one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided. For in his days the earth was divided. And his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan fathered Almadad, Sheleph, Hazar Maveth, Jerah, Hadaram, Uzal, Dikla, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Joab. All these were the sons of Joktan. The territory in which they lived extended from Mesha in the direction of Sephar to the hill country of the east. These are the sons of Shem by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. These are the clans of the sons of Noah according to their genealogies and their nations, and from these the nations spread abroad on the earth after the flood. Whew.
Why would it say that the earth was divided?
Good question. I was about ready to ask you all that question. Why would it say that?
Because somewhere mammal grows in there.
Continental drift.
I get continental drift. I get Babel.
We all talk different. They said once. Said they each had their own language.
Those that believed God and those that were not, that did not. That's
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I looked. I read Luther on it and looked. He doesn't even mention it. I don't even think the Lutheran Study Bible, I couldn't find anything there. If one of you have a Lutheran Study Bible, maybe they do mention something, but I missed it. And quite honestly, if we were talking about this at seminary, I was probably asleep at the time after going through all the genealogy. It's like, hey, guys, don't you know? I got Hebrew coming up, church history. What?
He says by the confusion of tongues. That's what the study Bible note says.
So divided is the confusion of the tongues? Yeah. Right. So the Lutheran Study Bible is making a note pointing it to the Tower of Babel, the division that happens there, division of languages. Okay.
So somewhere in the genealogy that occurred, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Somewhere in this genealogy that occurred.
Well, sure. So whoever was named in his time, in his days, right, to Eber was Peleg, for in his days, in Peleg's days, the earth was divided.
Okay.
And the brother's name was Joktan. So so there's something there, and I gave it a good Boy Scout try looking it up today, and I couldn't get any real in-depth information about it. My guess is that we just don't really have a lot to go on, because I don't recall this being mentioned anywhere else in the scriptures, although some of these names are mentioned in the New Testament. And so you can have an extra cookie if you know where.
Who? What?
Matthew or Luke.
So which one?
50.
50-50. Nope. Sorry. Luke chapter 3. You you get the cookie. So some of these names, and really I believe, if I remember right, it's only 2, but right here, Arpachshad, it's a different spelling in the Greek, is mentioned by Luke in chapter 3 when Luke is writing out the genealogy of Jesus, right? Because Luke's genealogy goes all the way to Adam, right? Ends with Adam, whereas Matthew's genealogy starts with Abraham.
It says here in the study Bible, here at the Table of Nations, describe the origins and interrelationships of many nations of the world. This is important because it is the only document of its kind in existence that demonstrates the common descent of human beings from Noah.
Yeah. Yet another good reason to believe that the text that we're dealing with is not only truly inspired by God, but the document is genuine, right? It really is giving us history of the time. So yeah, so Shem, the genealogy that we read here in Shem.
There it is, the son of Peleg, son of Eber.
Yeah, yeah. The Christ comes through his lineage, through Shem. So God preserves himself a remnant, preserves Shem to bring us Jesus thousands of years later. Oh, all right. It's 7:00.
I guess we can safely assume that no one gives life for the kids.
Why not?
They aren't listed.
They're not listed. That would be a good assumption. I agree. It'd be a good assumption. I don't know about safely, because we'll get to heaven and it'll be, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
But no, I think you're right. Good. Yeah, it would be a good assumption. Yeah, and certainly, but let's close here with this. What's the importance of having Shem listed last?
Abraham's gonna come from Shem.
Yeah. So this genealogy, it's being held for last. It's pointing us to Abraham, who's coming, right? But this is giving us the seed of the woman. That's the whole idea with the genealogy. This is bearing out the truth of Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. God's promise that the seed of the woman, the seed of Eve, right, will bring forth the Messiah. And so that's proving it out.
Isn't that pattern throughout the Old Testament? It is the ancestral lines that are not, and the others are forgotten.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's the pattern. Yeah, over and over again until we get to the New Testament, right? And then after the Gospels, that's it. right? Because Jesus has come. Jesus has come. But I would think that if I was Jewish and I was taking a look at this and reading these genealogies, and then I encountered the genealogies that are listed by Luke and Matthew, I think my eyes would kind of go wide. I certainly, my ears would pick up, and I would be going, "Wow, that's a pretty bold statement concerning who the Christ is, right? That Jesus is the Messiah." Because this, the Pentateuch's written long before, so. All right, any other questions or ideas, thoughts?
Surprised you
Go ahead.
didn't.
I was just wondering, because you have the bow and the promise in Genesis, and do you think that's any tie-in to the throne in heaven when it talks about the throne, around the throne was a rainbow
Right,
that had the appearance of emerald?
Yeah, that's what chapter 21 in Revelation, I think.
It's for chapter 3.
Oh, chapter 3.
Yeah, it says, and he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian, and around the throne was a rainbow that had the appearance of emerald. And it's under the chapter heading The Throne in Heaven.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I would think there's a connection there, right? The symbolism is certainly there, right? Promise. The promise is there, right? The promise of Christ for sure.
Oh, I was just thought you might have said something about the Jebusites, Jerusalem, and Egypt, which I'm assuming Egypt eventually made its way to Egypt.
Oh, right, the name. Yeah, the name Egypt.
So, is that true?
Yeah.
Again in Egypt, end up in Egypt.
Yeah, so right. So that is interesting. Is that Egypt the father of the Egyptians, right? And it doesn't tell us. But the name, but certainly the name is appropriated by the people who settle in where we know now as Egypt, right? But it is interesting as we're reading through these names, because we're less familiar with the geography. But someone who's really familiar with the geography of the ancient world and the people at that time, who are hearing this, certainly, from Moses, they're hearing these names and they're going, yeah, we know where that place is. Yeah, we know exactly, this is like us, yeah, I know where Tenasket is and Yakima and Puyallup, some of those strange people. Any other thoughts? All right, let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Thank you, everyone.